Hey everyone, Nick the DM here for a quicker video. Now before I start, I want to talk to you about Undead. Anyone who has either played a Necromancer, Lich, Archlich, or Lich in the Making probably already knows how limited your options are when it comes to personalizing your Undead army. Well, today I'm going to add two more creatures to your roster. I present to you the Skeletal Dragon and Zombie Dragons, both from the 3.5 Draconomicon. Now, both of these aren't exactly stat blocks for you to use, but they're templates you can apply to any existing dragon to make it an undead servant. And one more thing, in older editions, if a player wanted an undead creature of any type, they only needed to be a high enough level and use Animate Dead. Since the spell has changed, that's no longer able to be done in the same way. If you want different undead like these dragons, talk to your DM and see if you can work something out. Make a homebrew spell maybe, or use animate undead at a higher level depending on the target. It's all up to you and your DM. Now, without further ado, let's check out these templates. I'm going to start with the Skeletal Dragon. Skeletal Dragon, first major changes are the dragon's type changes from dragon to undead, and it no longer requires air, food, drink, or sleep. Next is its hit dice. Now, I didn't use the same rule in my video on worms and great worms, but the traditional rule for health with creatures is they get their number of hit dice, and then they get their additional number. So they're, let's say, 12d10 plus 24. It would come from the fact that they'd have a +2 Constitution and 12 hit dice. So you multiply the number of hit dice they have by their plus to Constitution, and that's how many additional hit points they will gain. I, again, changed that in Worm and Great Worm video. I just made it an easier system for everyone to use. But when it comes to Undead Dragons, the base dragon's hit dice remain the same, but it loses any Constitution bonus to its hit points. Instead, it just gains a flat number equal to the number of hit dice it has. So in the example of 12d10, it would have 12d10 plus 12 hit points because the plus 12 comes from it having 12 hit dice. Make sense? And good. Moving on. Damage immunities. The Skeletal Dragon has immunity to poison as well as any immunities that it had in its life. In 3.5, they had it have immunity to cold damage. I didn't think that made too much sense, considering not many undead have just immunity to cold damage for being undead, so I just changed that to poison, as most undead currently do. As well as its immunity to poison damage, it also has the immunity to being poisoned. That is its only condition immunity. Now, a lot of you might be saying, well, it's a skeleton, shouldn't it have vulnerability to bludgeoning damage? Yes and no. That's all up to you or your DM, whoever's using it. But I didn't add that because dragons tend to be a lot stronger than your normal medium-sized humanoid skeleton. Next up is its speed. A dragon retains its land speed, so its walking speed, and any climb or burrow speed it had, but it loses the ability to fly and any swim speed that it once had while alive. Armor class has changed a little bit. So for any of you who don't know how armor class normally works, I'm going to use the Ancient Blue Dragon as an example. So for armor class for players, it's 10 plus dexterity unless you're wearing armor. That is the same rule with creatures. If they're wearing armor, it'll be based on whatever armor they're wearing. If not, it's normally shown in brackets as natural armor. With the Ancient Blue Dragon, you can see it has 22 natural armor. Subtract 10 from that, the base that you started with, 10 plus whatever, and then look if it has anything for a dexterity score. It has a +0 to dex, so that means its plus to natural armor is a +12. That's quite a lot of armor to be walking around with nothing other than your scales. With the undead creatures, instead of whatever flat bonus they normally get, it is based on what size category they are. So an Ancient Blue Dragon, because it is gargantuan, it instead gains a +6 to its natural armor. So instead of 10 plus 12 for natural armor, it'd be 10 plus 6. So it'd have a 16 instead. But keep in mind, this is an undead. It's not going to be nearly as strong as its living counterpart. Now, next thing is special abilities. The dragon loses any spell casting it had in life, as well as any breath weapons it had. It also loses its wing legendary action. So you can keep their legendary actions, but it doesn't have any wings. It just has bones, so it's not going to be able to use that. Ability scores: the dragon's strength, dexterity, constitution, and charisma all maintain the same or all remain the same as they were in life. The dragon's wisdom drops to a 10 if it was not lower already, and its intelligence score becomes a 6, as is common with most powerful zombie or skeletons. Saves and abilities: the skeletal dragon has proficiency in dexterity and constitution saves. Nothing for the intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, and it normally doesn't have strength. And it has expertise and perception like most dragons do, and proficiency in stealth. Any other proficiencies it once had are gone. This is mostly because dragons, when any type of undead is brought back to life, it's no longer its old self. It's just a body now. So anything it would just neutral baseline have. Languages: like any undead, the skeletal dragon understands any languages it knew in life, but cannot speak. And finally, the one thing that I really like is there's a system to change its challenge rating, so that makes things a lot easier for you. The skeletal dragon's CR is half of its CR of when it was alive, rounded up. Let's use the ancient blue dragon as an example. It has a challenge rating 23. If you cut that in half, that's going to be 11.5. You round up, that's challenge rating 12. Easy enough for that, pretty simple. And then you have basically your entire new stat block for your monster. Now remember, while you change your challenge rating, you also have to make sure to modify any saving throws or +2 attacks when you do that, because that is based entirely on the proficiency and whatever other skill it uses for that specific ability. That's it for skeletal dragons. Moving on to the zombie dragon. This is also a template that can be added on. In 3.5, this was only one that could be added to adult or older, I believe. I've changed that. It can be added to anything. Makes more sense to me. It can only be used on a full corpse. If it's a group of bones, it has to be a skeletal dragon. If it's a corpse, you can choose pretty much either one, because the skeletal dragon will just lose any flesh it has remaining. Zombie dragon will turn into a zombie. They reek of death, and their brilliant hide has now rotted away and been eaten through by maggots and worms. It maintains any statistics except for what we changed below. So just like the dragon beforehand, its type changes from dragon to undead. No longer requires air, food, drink, or sleep. Hit dice, same kind of change, but slightly different. So again, base hit dice remain the same, but it loses any constitution bonus. Instead, it gains a bonus equal to its hit die times 2. So in the example of 12d10, instead of it would gain 12d10 plus 24, because 2 times the number of hit dice it has. Damage immunities, same thing as before, immunity to the poisoned condition and poison damage, as well as anything it had in life beforehand for damage immunities. Armor class, this has changed slightly. So unlike being based on the size categories, which you can check out in the JPEG down below, or in the link down below, its armor class is half of the base natural armor bonus rounded down. So let's go back to the ancient blue dragon for an example. It has 22 armor class. You take away the initial 10, and then you cut that next one in half. That'll be 6. So in this exact case, it'll be 16 as well, just because it's ancient blue dragon, but otherwise that might change. Always calculate it based on armor class, minus the initial 10, minus any bonus it has to dexterity. That's its natural armor bonus. Then you cut that in half, and that's what you add on for the zombie dragon. Special abilities: it loses its spellcasting abilities, but unlike the skeletal dragon, it maintains its breath weapon. Though if it deals damage, it only does half the damage it's normally supposed to. But if it's something like a brass dragon sleep breath weapon, it stays the same, except for the DC. Remember, change the difficulty rating based on its new proficiency. Ability scores: strength and constitution will remain the same. Wisdom becomes a 10. Intelligence becomes a 3. And its dexterity will be reduced by 2. So whatever it is currently, reduce it by 2. And charisma will be reduced by 6. For saves and abilities, it has proficiency. It'll have the same saving throw proficiencies, but And it will, for abilities, it will have expertise in perception, proficiency. Ugh, words are hard. It will have expertise in perception and proficiency in stealth. It loses any additional proficiencies it had. Languages, just like other undead, cannot understand or cannot speak, but can understand any languages it knew in a past life. Challenge rating, very similar to how you calculate the challenge rating for a skeletal dragon. It's the CR of its living form cut in half, but then you add 1 to it. So, and of course, rounding up. Just for safety's sake, you always round up. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. It would really help me to be able to make more content for you all. Thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.